Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Father Son Packers podcast. My name is Tommy, and as always, I'm here with my co-host Matt. Dad, how are you doing?
Well, I watched that game today, so that can tell you something about how I'm doing.
Yeah, I'm doing about the same. I'm glad to hear we're on the same page.
At least from a football perspective, things aren't great, but otherwise, other things are good.
Yeah, but football is the most important thing. And the Packers lost 15-9 to the Detroit Lions.
Thank goodness football isn't really the most important thing.
Well, maybe yes, maybe no, but 15-9 loss for the Packers to the Detroit Lions. Keep the losing streak going. 5 in a row. First time losing 5 games in a row with Rodgers at quarterback since
we have
first
momentum.
Year.
It's just in the wrong direction.
Yes, we are going
An
the
object
wrong way.
in motion tends to stay in motion. And that's what our team has been doing, going in the wrong direction at a constant clip.
And LaFleur-led team has never lost 6 games in a row before. So next week we got it locked up.
How many weeks in a row can we say this?
Since the first loss going into this season. LaFleur-led Packers team had never lost 2 regular season games in a row. They have now lost 5 in a row, like we've said, and the skid is showing no signs of stopping. Before we get into this awful game, though, we do want to pitch a couple of things. If you are still going to ride out the season with us, we would love for you to come give us a follow on Twitter at FatherSonPacker, where we tweet out when we have new episodes. And we tweet out Packers news and notes, which you're going to have to be following closely this week with all the injuries also sustained in this game. Yes, it wasn't just a bad result. They also lost a lot of players. We're going to go into that as well. If you want to follow us on YouTube as well, Father Son Packers Podcast, that would really help our numbers. There we post our episodes as well. But yeah, at Father Son Packer on Twitter, Father Son Packers Podcast on YouTube. Come follow, come subscribe. Would help us out. Thank you so much. Dad, should we get into this awful train wreck of a game?
We're still here after this game. We're coming back for more.
Yep.
As this skid becomes a skid mark.
Oh man, they look like the DeLorean just pulled. That's the 50 feet of flames from Back to the Future 1 before it started to fly. But anyway, this team is. I think we're almost at put a fork in him. I'm at put a fork in him. I know you're not quite. But do you want to start with our gut checks, Dad? What was your gut reaction to this awful this game? Just as a preface to our listeners, we do post games every Sunday night. We do pre games every Thursday night. I think this might be the most unhinged we get on a post game. Usually they're pretty analytical, but I'm reeling right now, and it's very late. And this was an awful game. Like, it was terrible in every way.
Today's post game may be a little more emotional than our usual.
I think so, because after the Bills game, I think we were very optimistic. And
right, because we felt like we didn't expect to win that game anyway, and it was more sort of process driven. How does the team look? Blah, blah, blah. They seem to be improving even though they lost.
And we were such suckers. We were such suckers. They got us so good. I mean, this team is terrible. And
fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me.
Yes, we were absolute suckers for thinking that. I thought this was going to be the turnaround game. I really believed it.
This is a get-right game. This defense for the Lions is one of the worst of all time.
And I totally bought it.
Finally put up points.
I totally bought it. They totally suckered me.
They should have put up points because they're moving the ball up and down the field, but they still screw it up.
Yep. This team, like we've said a million times, finds ways to lose football games. And because they, quote-unquote, kept it close against the Bills, we were wrong. I admit, we were wrong. I really thought that was a building block of a game. They'd come out here, they'd kind of put it on the Lions, they would be able to throw because the Lions defense is awful. I mean, gut reaction, since you haven't said yours, that I am sick to my stomach at this team right now. I personally think it's stick a fork in them for this season, start looking forward time. They're 3-6 now. The division's all but out. I mean, they're 4.5 back in the division. They could maybe sneak into the 7 seed. I know you are not quite ready to put them away, but my gut reaction is this loss felt worse than any non-playoff loss in a long time, I think. Maybe not quite as bad as the Tampa Bay blowout game or the San Francisco blowout game. But, I mean, to lose to the Lions in a must-win game, I know you're on the road, but they have one win. They I know they're better than their record, but they had one win, and you had to win this game. I don't know. What's your gut reaction, Dad?
So my gut reaction is, I think we have basically no chance at the division. I'm not going to give up on this team yet because I think they, have some chance of getting the last wild card spot. But that's all I'm hoping for right now. Is the last wild card spot. Is it a high chance? No, it's not a high chance. But I will not hang up this season until they don't have a chance at the playoffs. And by chance I mean they need 10 games besides their own to go the right way kind of chance.
Yeah.
I think
yeah. I mean they do still control their own destiny, at least, I guess.
Think if they get to, we could say that it's incredibly unlikely they've been playing, but if they get to 11-6, then they should make the playoffs. Can they do it?
Can they win 8 in a row? I'm leaning towards no. I'm gonna lean towards no. But anyway,
I have a feeling that we won't be hearing Rodgers say, "I think we can run the table."
I mean, did you hear what
he thinks that?
Did you hear what he said after the game?
No, I haven't watched his interview. What did he say?
It was something along the lines of "I played bad, but I never gave up." I think was the quote.
He was certainly right. He was certainly at least half right.
Glass half full.
This was, I think, his worst game of the season.
Yeah, I think that's fair. He threw for the most yards he had this season, though. Let's get into the game breakdown. Let's start with, because it wasn't just enough to lose this game, you also had to lose a ton of key players. Let's start with the injury update, Dad. This was catastrophic, and then the Lions lost several guys as well, but the Packers were just dropping like flies in this game.
Star players,
and key contributors.
And it started early.
I mean, yes. It started with Romeo Doubs on about the second or third play from scrimmage for the offense.
First play from scrimmage.
It was first play from scrimmage for the offense. I
believe it was the first play from scrimmage. They complete the pass on first down first down,
and he turned his ankle bad.
Foot gets pinned and rolls the ankle up bad, and he's done for the day.
Yeah, so I'm just going to read this off. Doubs, ankle injury on that first drive, carted to the locker room, in crutches after the game in the locker room. Rashawn Gary, knee injury in the second half, carted to the locker room on crutches after the game. Eric Stokes, knee and ankle injuries. The broadcast said it was kind of nasty, so they didn't even want to show it.
I heard them say that. So how bad? I mean,
must have been
when
really
you hear
bad.
That it's maybe that means he's done for the year.
Yeah, carted to the locker room in crutches after the game. Aaron Jones.
What direction did that bend in?
Yeah, I mean, it was knee and ankle as well, so just must have gotten really pinned up or rolled up on. Aaron Jones, ankle injury, jogged to the locker room, jogged back out onto the sideline, but he never returned, and he was in a walking boot after the game with that
surprised
me
when he was jogging to the locker room. So maybe he'll come back in. Now he's in a boot.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like just he's not going to have any lateral movement, I would guess, is the main issue.
I suppose he can't cut.
Yeah. Christian Watson, pretty much his first touch of the game, got a concussion.
He had a first down earlier than that on the left side where he got around the corner with his speed and just converted for a first down. I think it might be even a third down conversion.
And back-to-back weeks with a
good.
concussion, which means you should probably shut it down for the year. Like, honestly,
that's not good, especially because we're halfway through the year now.
Yeah, and it's just been such a rough start for him. I mean, can you paint a worse picture for a first NFL season? I don't know if you can. Just tons of nagging things.
In some ways, you could just call it a loss. It's a lost season.
Yeah. Chris Barnes, concussion, did not return. Then there's some players that left and came back. David Bakhtiari, his knee, I guess, flared up at halftime in the locker room, and he left for almost the entire second half. And then he came back for the last drive, I guess, when they were trying to have a miracle happen.
Right, I think he was like, okay, I'm going out there for this 2-minute drill because
try and save the season. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then John Runyon left with a knee injury early in the game, but he came back and did finish the game out at right guard. And then Robert Tonyan jogged off and got looked at by trainers, but I did not see if he made it back in the game. So all in all, one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, 9 guys kind of waylaid with injury. I'd say your 2 best players on the team in Rashawn Gary and Aaron Jones looking like they're going to have long-term injuries in a boot and crutches and getting sent to the locker room. You're starting outside corner in Stokes. You're probably your best receiver right now in Dobbs. Both going to miss a lot of time. Your other best receiver, Watson, going to miss more time with a concussion. You're down another linebacker. You're probably going to play McDuffie the rest of the time at linebacker, I would imagine. Bakhtiari, it seems like not only could his knee flare up before the game, less than 24 hours, and he can't play, it could flare up in game. And he'd have to, because he was on the sideline riding an exercise bike. I don't know if you saw that.
I saw that in the second half, that he was on the exercise bike after he started to sit out. I guess trying to loosen it up.
I mean, just injury to insult in this game. I mean, they lost so many guys.
That was especially like the Barnes was injury to insult. He got a 15-yard penalty that gave them a first down when they were behind the sticks, and he got knocked out of the game.
Yeah, I mean,
say all at once.
It was exactly how the game went for the Packers. I mean, pretty much almost everything that could go wrong did go wrong for the Packers. And none of it was all that surprising because we'd kind of seen it before this year. They find, like we said when we were talking on the call before the game, before we started recording, they find ways to lose football games. And it's almost impressive. Like, they find ways to lose these games over and over again. And it's just maddening.
Yep. There's it's not always the same way. It's not always the same culprit.
Yep.
But it's at least for 5 games in a row now. It's always the same outcome.
Yep. And I mean, these injuries are going to be really important to monitor. Seems like several are going to be more long-term than short-term. And I think it's part of what is compounding the effect, along with this loss, sending them to 3-6, for why I think we can almost stick a fork in this team. But anyway, Dad, do you want to get into the breakdown of what actually went down and do some talk throughs, do some therapy?
We'll talk through a little bit of this. And so I know you're ready to dismiss this because you feel like it doesn't matter anymore. But I do want to talk a little about what we wanted to see, and this won't be short, because some of it was we wanted to see in our pregame
from the defense, just so.
Are
we doing offense?
You want to go offense first or defense first?
Let's go offense first. What did we want to see from the offense going? What do we want to see from the offense going into this game?
Looking at more running and use of DeGuara. He had a career high in catches.
I thought they used DeGuara a lot more. Yeah,
he was out there a lot. We were hoping to. One of the things I said was like to start with the run and then try some explosive plays. Well, they had a lot of trouble establishing the run, and then pass to the young receivers. And with Dobbs out on the very first play from scrimmage, and then Watson out pretty early in the game, and that was just thrown out the window.
Yep,
we couldn't even try it. We tried to get Touré involved a little bit, but he's just, I think, not quite far enough along. He had a couple catches, but
he had one nice catch. Yeah,
made
and then fumbled it immediately.
Luckily, it got it to the out of bounds line. We had 2 of those.
Barely got to the out of bounds line.
Barely. It was like moving. You could see the laces turn a little bit as his elbows hit the ground, and that's why it was not recovered in bounds. Anyway, let's get on to bad things.
Yeah, let's just get the good things out of the way because we're going to spend more time on the bad things, I think, just because But anyway, good things for the offense.
So why don't you go? Yeah, we'll go good, bad.
Yeah, I have one thing, and it's Zach Tom. He had to play right guard when Runyon came out and then left tackle when Bakhtiari came out, and I didn't think the O-line suffered that much in performance. It's hard to come in halfway into a game that you didn't know you were going to play. It's even harder to come in at right guard where you hadn't even played very well before and then swap over to left tackle, switching not only positions but also sides and not really having that big of a drop-off in your play. So Zach Tom, I think, is my only real positive on the offensive side of the football. They didn't really do anything else very well. I don't know what else to even say. I think it's impressive from the rookie, and I think it's a building block for him going forward. I thought he looked a lot better at guard than he did the last time he played guard. The last time he played guard, if you remember, I said I don't think he can play guard. He did it okay, and he was pretty solid at left tackle, had to play both. He's my only positive. And he's also my player of the game, which we'll get to later, but he's my only positive.
So I'm I'm pulling positives out of here at granular detail.
Pulling positives out of where.
that could very well be. You might decide that's true if you hear what they are. But actually, they were able to move the ball. So
they were supposed to be able to move the ball,
and they did.
The Lions' defense is terrible.
They were successful at moving the ball. It's not that their offense bogged down and just was a total shit show. I'm going to use that word because that's what this was today.
I was going to say it kind of did bog down though on every individual drive.
Well, what happened was so maybe bogging down was the word, but they did fail. So every drive that they had ended in Detroit territory. They were able to, except for the kneel down at the first half, which was like one play they knelt down. That hardly even counts as a drive.
Yeah,
but we can first drive, 13 plays, to the Detroit 5 before the interception.
Yeah, that drive went on forever. That first drive, that thing took a year.
7 plays, 47 yards to the Detroit 1 interception. 12 plays, 61 yards to the Detroit 38. That ended on downs when the pass to Lazard was overturned. Mm-hmm. For the first down.
Yeah, he didn't
Then
catch
6 plays, 23 yards to the Detroit 44. And then there was the 2 plays for 1 yard before the interception there, the Detroit 22. 7 plays, 54 yards, touchdown. A 14-play drive for 68 yards that ended up at the Detroit 7 for a field goal. They got 14 plays for only 68 yards. And the last one was 8 plays for 40 yards to the Detroit 17. They were able to move it on almost every possession and get into Detroit territory every time. So the offense was actually functioning from 20 to 20.
Yep, I'm going to take over here because my negative is the red zone offense was awful. It was so bad. I mean, do you want to say anything more about this?
I have some more positives actually.
I'm taking over.
But they won't take long.
I'm taking over.
They won't take long.
I'm taking over. The red zone offense, like you were saying, they moved the ball 20 to 20.
Oh yeah.
But I took this list from Andy Herman's tweet. They had a first and goal at the Detroit 5. They ended up throwing a pick on that drive. They had a first and goal at the Detroit 1. They ended up throwing a pick on that drive. They had a first and 10 at the Detroit 23. They came away with no points. They had a first and 10 at the Detroit 14. They came away with 3 points. They had a first and 10 at the Detroit 17. They came away with no points. I mean,
it's one of the worst red zone performances you could ever see.
It is do you remember when they had the gold zone and they were like the most electric red zone offense you could imagine?
In 2020.
In 2020, 2 years ago.
They were one of the best red zone offenses of all time.
What on earth happened? What happened? Like they were one of the best red zone offenses ever. And
I think their offensive line isn't as good. And it was, and it actually
wasn't as good last year either. Yeah, I know, but
yeah, and the red zone performance was worse last year than the year before.
No, I know. That's why the red zone offense wasn't as good last year.
So we saw a degradation in offensive line performance, and the red zone performance got worse, and we're seeing that downward trend again this year get even worse, and the red zone performance getting even worse.
They just had so many creative. I mean, they got a little too creative, honestly, today.
They got a little, and they've had this, I think, a little bit too cute in the red zone a number of times.
But it's hard because the not cute stuff isn't working. Like they're not the running up the middle isn't working either.
We can talk about this a little bit
because my other negative is they couldn't run the effing ball. They ran Jones and Dillon combined for 59 yards on 20 carries. That's less than 3 yards a carry. I mean, Rodgers led the team in rushing. The reason they couldn't run is because the Lions packed the box to the nines and said, "We dare you. We absolutely dare you to throw the ball to the," because what they were leaving open was the outside sidelines, like shots down the sideline, and they pretty much said, "We'll man up, and there is no way your receivers can beat these guys."
But the thing was, they did move the ball on every possession. They just couldn't get in the end zone.
That's true. And when the field condensed,
so otherwise, that strategy was okay for the Packers. Just they couldn't convert, and some of it was once again they took pistol and aimed it straight at the big toe, and fired.
And they ran out of pistol when they should have been running from under center. Like the stuff to DeGuara or sorry, not Jaguar. One of the picks right before they tried running Dillon up the middle, but
From shotgun?
they offset pistol, but same idea.
Oh, pistol.
Like they just run it up the middle. I mean, I can't just say that because the run wasn't working. Like we said, they averaged less than 3 yards a carry. Like that's horrendous. And I know Jones got hurt. Kylan Hill had 1 carry for 7 yards, which is nice.
If you include the Kylan Hill, then it's 3.1 yards per carry.
Yes,
because his carry was 7 yards.
Now we're
we're
cooking with
gas.
We're
cooking with gas. Yep.
But anyway, I mean, and then my other. Are we getting to negatives? Let's just rip off the negatives. Or
Okay,
you want?
I did have a couple. I mean,
okay. What were your last 2 positives?
And some of the scrambling by Rodgers, several for first downs.
Okay, I guess.
And the pass blocking, just which you already touched on.
I thought the pass
blocking was good.
Yeah, they couldn't run.
They had the 1 sack, which was still a while before that sack happened.
So weird because the Zach Tom offensive line the previous week couldn't pass block, but they could run block, and now they can pass block, but they can't run block. I don't know. I don't know what happened from point A to point B. I don't know how we got here. I don't like where we are, but I don't know how we got here.
I do have this theory that I don't know if it makes much sense in terms of our run blocking, because I feel like and maybe this is all confirmation bias, but it has seemed to me for years now that if it's like we need 1 yard or 2 yards, our failure rate seems so high.
Because they only run it out of shotgun.
Or if we're at the goal line, that we can't get in, and yet we can't stop anybody when the roles are reversed.
I mean, yeah.
And I think some of it is, I wonder if it has to do with the type of lineman we favor.
I don't think so. They tried to fix this problem. They went to starting to draft bigger guys. That's the reason they let Lindsley go, is because they wanted to get bigger along the interior. That's why they drafted Myers.
Yeah.
That's why that's why they have Elton in there. He's huge. Like Runyon's a smaller guy.
Like guys with
tackle experience.
Speed and agility.
Yes,
speed and agility.
But they have
rather than
size.
Road graders.
But they have size on the interior. And even when they had road graders like Lucas Patrick, he's mid, but he's a road grader, it's not like they moved anyone really. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I subscribe to that being the reason. I just think they don't play physically enough as a team and never have. I mean, have they ever really out physical the team?
Well, but then the question is why?
I mean, coaching.
I mean that they play less physically is an observation. Then the answer, then the next question is why does that happen?
Coaching and leadership mentality,
possibly.
I think, I don't know, just overall mentality of the team.
Could be
if I can add my other negatives, I mean, I don't know how we haven't gotten here, but Rodgers was awful. He threw for the most yards he had in a game this season with 290. Don't be fooled. He was terrible. He threw 3 picks in the red zone. I don't even know when the last time he threw 3 picks in a game was. It was years ago.
It was 2015. Somebody mentioned it. I can't
over half a decade, almost certainly.
It's been a little while.
Tons of missed plays, borderline having a tantrum on the field at times. I mean,
he should have been. And I assume he was yelling at himself because it was after his own screw ups. I hope he was yelling at himself.
Yeah, I mean, it's just.
But yeah, I mean, he had, and I have that as my bad things too. Like the red zone Rodgers. The 20-20 Rodgers was okay. Red zone Rodgers was a disaster. Another deflected ball, in the red zone. This time off of a helmet.
Yeah,
and I have extra thoughts on this too because this seems to be a trend lately of these deflected balls at the line.
The Giants they had 3 at the end of the game or twice. Yeah,
at the 1 yard line where they couldn't get in, and they had the interception last week. It was like this week, an interception right after an interception. That one, so it's 2 weeks in a row. We had a deflection for an interception.
When they picked off that ball, I was so sure we were going to throw a pick. I was just so positive.
After
It was
Jair's
so
pick,
on
you figured we were
brand.
going to return the favor.
Yes, we just did it last week versus the Bills. I had deja vu all over again.
And so one thing I wonder is that all these deflected balls, it's like, is this related to the other problem we've seen Rodgers have this season, which is throwing these balls in the dirt? That he's been missing low a lot this year. Are these balls bouncing off of helmets and getting deflected at the line part of the same problem of being off target low?
It definitely could be.
And is it? I noticed that some of these, he's like doing trying to do like the little sidearm sling to slip it through the opening. And is his release point
Say that
low?
3 times fast. The
Is his
slide
release
arm
point low?
sling to slip it in there.
So that's what's causing some of these to get deflected the line more. I don't know. Is it a problem of mechanics?
I mean,
or is it? But I don't know. But that's
I'm
one
not-
thing. He's like,
I'm not a quarterback. I'm not a
are these
quarterback
related?
guru, but I can tell you that the pick he threw to the pass that was going to Bakhtiari, and you can say what you want about the play call. It's a little cutesy, but he was open
to your one-legged left
Oh
tackle.
my goodness! I think it was Mosqueda, but someone tweeted, "How is he okay enough to run a route and like throw the ball to, but he can't play the entire second half?"
Or maybe the reason he couldn't play the entire second half is because he tried to run a route earlier in the game.
If that's true, like that's very scary. But also, he was open. He was wide open. The play worked.
Just terribly underthrown.
Rodgers just he threw it off his right, like falling away
He
off his
did
right
the
leg,
falling
and,
back foot thing,
and it wasn't even close. I mean, he underthrew it by like 7 yards. Like Bakhtiari was open. The play worked.
I give it like 4 yards underthrown.
Okay, whatever. The play worked. Bakhtiari was open.
3 yards underthrown.
And
Yeah.
Rodgers just missed him. And there was several times throughout the game where he missed guys or he didn't even see them. Like, Rodgers ate a sack on one where Lazard and Tunyon were just wide open in the middle of the field. I mean, that screenshot specifically sticks in my mind because I saw it reposted so many times. I know it's only like a single sample, but it felt like there were a lot of times where he just held the ball or just missed a guy. I mean, I don't know. I was a really, really poor Rodgers game, and I just wanted to make sure that we touched on that because
Oh, yeah, it was terrible.
he was terrible.
We have been, in other games saying,
Very apologetic of him.
the team's not blocking. We had a game where, and it's true, there was a terrible blocking game.
Yes.
There was the holding penalty game. There were the 8 drops game. Well, this was firmly on Rodgers for this loss.
Yes, and it was 100%. And I know some people are saying like the argument is when you're paying a quarterback this much, even if there are deficiencies on the team, they should be able to elevate the rest of the offense around them enough where those deficiencies get masked. But I think the problem we're running into is he's not mobile enough. Like, you need mobility to mask these problems. And even no mobility would even save him today. Even if he could move, he actually did move pretty well today and scrambled well. But for the most part this season, he has not been able to get out, like break out of the pocket like he used to. And I think that's the swing skill that allows you to raise like those inefficiencies. Like we see Mahomes with less good talent.
You extend the play.
And he's able to extend the play and be a superstar. But when you start to lose that mobility, which again, he scrambled well today, but I think we can all still acknowledge he's not as mobile as he once was. You lose the ability to elevate your surrounding players. And so I think the question is, was it a good idea to give him this massive contract when he's this old and assume that a player who has always kind of needed some of his mobility would maintain it? I mean, he's been playing well from the pocket for the last 2 years, so it's not entirely that. But I think there's an impact.
The logic is that he has been throwing the ball faster the last 2 years, taking fewer sacks, and getting the ball out of his hands quickly in the structure of the offense. This year, that's kind of fallen apart. And today, he was
terrible. He was awful.
In critical situations, he was terrible. And I think so he had 2 interceptions from like inside the 5, and then another one that was intercepted at the goal line, where I think you have to call that a bad read or an off target throw. It was with the one to Tunyon double teamed at the goal line.
Just, forcing it in there. And I mean, he said after the game that he felt like he didn't play well, but he didn't give up. And I'm like, that's such a low bar. Like, that's such a low bar. And I don't understand. Like, to use that as like a positive after the game, I understand there's not a lot of positives to take away, but I don't know. That just was like, I'm like, really? Like, that's where we are right now? I don't know.
Well, there are times when people give up. I mean, they were still trying. They had that one last drive to try to take the win. They, surprise, surprise, petered
Not
out.
quite.
And were in the red zone.
Yeah, I mean,
But
I think
the other thing
the biggest problem was the offense today. Like,
defense was
okay.
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
The other thing I had about the offense is kind of a minor thing. The multiple offensive pass interferences when they're trying to hurry up and get 2 scores to get back in that game, and they can't, and they're like torpedoing that drive. They end up with a field goal with 2 offensive pass interferences on plays where they're trying to block in out of the bunch formation, or
they are finding new ways to beat themselves. Like, these plays are a staple of the offense.
Yeah.
And honestly, another bad I had, and I'm going to disagree with you because I saw you had this player down as positive. I thought Lazard was awful today. I thought he was really bad. I thought he had several drops in key situations. Felt like he had two important drops. And I know he's laboring out there, like his shoulder's still banged up, I think, but I think he's been kind of disappointing to me this year. And the offense was the main problem today, but there's just so many problems. I don't know. Do you have anything else for the offense?
No, I think we've gone into it all.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what they're going to do with Bakhtiari going forward. I don't know what they're going to do with no receivers at all. I mean, Sammy Watkins was, again, a no-show. 5 targets, 1 catch.
Yeah. I mean, he had the one good game before he went on IR.
Just like the Packers, the one good game against the Bears.
And he's contributed essentially nothing.
Yeah.
Since then. And since he came back from IR, I don't see a reason why he deserves snaps over the younger players, except, they might all be out with injury now.
Exactly. And it's like, and he ran, I don't know if you noticed, I'm putting Sammy Watkins in my negative, screw it. He ran 2 wrong routes at the end.
Oh, and he
ran the wrong way.
Rodgers throws the fade to the corner, and Watkins turns to the inside.
This was my Joker moment. Like, this was my moment where because the whole point of playing this, I know at this point, like, obviously the young guys were hurt, but the whole point of playing the guys like him and Cobb and Lazard is that they were going to do what you expect them to do. They were going to know the playbook, and they were going to run the routes that Rodgers expected. And you got these guys who are supposed to be the old reliables, and the reason we're not playing these younger guys who have more juice and higher upside, Lazard dropping balls left and right. Sammy Watkins running the wrong routes. Like, what is the point of these guys if they're making the same rookie mistakes? If they're making the same mistakes a rookie would make, and they don't have the ceiling of these rookies, what is the point? What is the point? I don't understand. And I know at that point of the game, like, the rookies were hurt. Yes, that's fair. There's no other option at that point. But I think it's just indicative of, did the plan ever make sense if these guys were always going to be making these mistakes? I don't know. That's my rant.
I think their hope was there would be a bridge until the young guys were ready to really get going in the second half of the season.
Yeah,
I assume that was the plan.
Yeah, I mean, that must have been the plan, but yeah, I don't know. I think I can't remember who it was, but they just came into the season super unprepared at every facet of the game. Like,
it's amazing how bad they were at fundamentals when the season began.
Yes, but they're still bad at them now. Like, they're better, but they're still bad at them now. I mean, yeah, it's amazing how they couldn't pick up a stunt until week 5. It's amazing how
they couldn't pass off a receiver.
They couldn't pass off a receiver in zone until week 4. Like it's incredible. It's actually incredible. Do you want to move on to the defense? Like,
sure. Let's move on to the defense.
Okay.
And so I only had one thing that that I had as one thing we wanted to see from the defense in our pregame, and that was converting pressures to sacks. Well, you know how many sacks we had today?
1?
0.
Ooh. And I know Gary went out, but that's still not, that can't
I
happen.
know 100% we did not convert pressures to sacks.
I will
had 0
say
of them.
I will say Enigbare had a sack that was called back by penalty. I'm going to take it.
Of course it was.
I was going to say, a nice moral victory. I mean, the defense was nowhere near as bad as the offense in this game. Oh, one last thing on the offense. The Lions allowed 32 points per game going into this game, and you couldn't put double digits on the board. And there was no weather. You're in a dome. What are we doing? They're giving up 32 a game. 32 points a freaking game, and you had to win this game to save your season, and you couldn't muster 10 points. 10.
I think I was just going to check. Did we score less than half their next lowest? Let's see.
Their next lowest, I believe, was 24.
They gave, so far this season, they've given up 38, 27, 28, 48, 29, 24, 27, and naughty number 9 from the Packers.
We couldn't get double digits on a team that was bleeding points. I don't know if the new secondary coach they hired is reincarnated Ronnie Lott and gave them all superpowers. I don't even know. But unless they replaced Aubrey Pleasant with the king of secondary coaching, which doubtful. What are we doing? Couldn't put up 10 points on the board.
When they did say they're changing coordinators,
Oh,
damn
they
it!
don't know. I was like, can we get him for one more week?
You just knew something was going to happen. It's like when they changed quarterbacks. It's happened to us. It's like
when the commanders went to Heineke. It's like, that's not good. That's not good for us.
And the general narrative is, they're going to a backup. We're going to just roll now. It's like, no, give me the starter that we already knew sucked instead of a new guy that we're not sure of.
Man, let's go back to the defense though. I just wanted to note that they couldn't.
Let's get back to that.
The offense was worse than inept. The offense was feeble, pathetic, and I don't even know. Just, ugh. I know they put up yards. I don't care. Points are what matters.
Anyway, let's go into the defense.
The defense was okay.
Get the good things.
It was pretty good.
Good things first.
Yeah, I thought the defense was pretty good. They held them to 15 points. I'd say that's pretty good. I mean, they were averaging, what was it? Did you have?
Yeah. So one of the things I had was that they mostly shut them down in terms of points. So they've been at home. They've been averaging 35, almost 36 points a game at home, and so they only gave up 15.
They only gave up 15. They had them the whole first half was mostly barely.
They didn't
barely
score
moved the
until
ball.
the 2 minute, until less than 2 minutes in the game on that last possession.
Yeah, I bet everyone watching Red Zone was like, "Is that Packers Lions game delayed?" Because I haven't seen it all. It was 0-0 for a long time.
The Packers were in the red zone a couple of times.
That's true.
I'm sure the fans on red zone saw the Packers on offense a couple of times there.
Yeah.
Just because there were no points doesn't mean there were no red zone trips.
And the defense was okay. I mean, they held the Lions running backs to 3.9 yards per carry, which is way down from their usual 5.2 a carry. They held Goff to 137 yards passing, which was a lot under his average going in the game of 252 per game. 15 points is enough to win this game if the offense does anything. If the offense does anything, 15 points should have been they should have won this game so easily, giving up 15 points. If you had told me going into this game they only gave up 15 points, I'd be like, okay, they should 100% win this game. I thought Enigbare looked very solid. He looks like a good rotational edge rusher that you actually finally hit on a defensive player outside of the first round is cool. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
And I think that somebody posted after last week's game, I don't know what the number's going to be after this week's, that he was, I think it was after last week's, he's second in the season among rookies in pressure rate.
And he's, I think, very clearly established himself as the third guy. And if Gary's going to miss time, he's going to get a lot of work. He's going to probably be the second guy now.
Yeah. Yeah, he's going to be a starter
Yeah.
if Gary's out. He's going to be starting next to Preston.
And we just got to hope. I mean, all I have left in this season is a Gary all-pro campaign to root for, maybe. So if he's out the season, it's going to be real tough. I mean, besides that, I mean, they were pretty good. They did enough to win the game.
Yeah, they were mostly shutting them down.
Yeah,
Some
what
fourth
good
down
things
stops,
do you have?
two fourth down stops. So yeah, some good things. They had 2 of those fourth down stops. They only allowed Detroit to get 4.5 yards per play, which would tie them for the league lead in yards per play for the season if they did that for the whole season.
Tie the Packers defense in league lead.
The Packers defense would be leading the league, tied with Denver at yards per play
for the
given
lowest.
up.
Yeah, for the lowest
Yards per play given up. And Detroit at 4.5 would be dead last in the league at yards per play at that number of 4.5. The lowest, I don't remember who it is, but it was like 4.7 was the lowest offensive yards per play. And so the yards per play differential was pretty good, actually. The Packers were at 5.6, which is kind of middle of the pack, but a pretty decent differential on yards per play.
Yeah.
And they had about them, in terms of shutting down the scoring.
Only 15 points. That's enough to win a game. Like, that's enough.
Yeah.
But bad things, more undisciplined penalties, which is just another sign of poor coaching. Jair after the play, 15-yard penalty, hitting a guy late. Chris Barnes, hope he's okay, obviously, but initiating a helmet-to-helmet hit, 15 yards. Really poor third down in situational defense. They gave up 6 of 11 on third down, which is 54%, when the Lions for the year were at 37% per team rankings. They only forced 1 turnover, even though Goff's kind of a turnover machine. Just didn't make plays, and just didn't make plays. I mean, didn't make plays on third down, didn't make plays on the ball besides the 1 pick. The third down was really, that's a really bad number for me, the 6 of 11. I know
that one's rough. I think they kept some of their drives going when they were able to actually score. And to add on to the thing about the penalties, they gave up 4 first downs off of penalties. And some of them when Detroit was way behind the sticks. We had them on the fourth quarter when they're trying to get the ball back. It was like 2nd and 20, and it was going to end up being like 3rd and 9, except the penalty gave them first down.
Yeah, it was
so they had him way
contact
behind
or something.
That was, I think was that the one that was the helmet by Barnes? That was what that might have been. And then there was another time where they're behind the sticks, and you feel like, oh man, I can't believe we're giving them a first down on a penalty now, when it was going to be a very difficult first down conversion on third.
They find ways to beat themselves every week. They find ways to beat themselves.
So that was what they wanted to add. And then I had a couple other negatives. They had no sacks, and it didn't seem like there were that many pressures to me either, where I think there were just a couple plays where Goff was had to go on the move to try to make a play.
I know. Okay,
dropped,
I know this.
Dropped interceptions again.
Yeah, but while we're talking about the pressures, I know this is probably not fair. But have you noticed Kenny in like the last 3 or 4 weeks?
Not much. I mean, he hasn't really been in the backfield. I think he led the team in tackles, which
I haven't noticed Kenny in weeks, like impacting the game at all.
And then they're talking about him getting some pressures. I'm like, you haven't really seen him in the backfield very disruptive.
And like Kenny
either.
Kenny's a great player and has played awesome football for the Packers, but I feel like he has not made an impact since before the Giants game.
He was really killing at the beginning of the year. And then dropped off. I wonder, I'm trying to remember if he got nicked up in one of those games.
He got nicked up a little bit. He had a groin injury that he missed.
You remember?
Well, yes, but he hasn't been on the injury report in weeks.
But
like
the defense took a big
listed.
step back when he had his groin injury back in was it 2019 or 2020?
I think it was 2019. But he hasn't been on the report in.
No, he hasn't.
I think it was 2020, but he hasn't been on the report. I don't know, Kenny. I just haven't noticed him in weeks, and I just thought we should point it out because defense hasn't. I don't know.
And the other bad thing are losing players in the end zone.
Yeah,
on defense.
I mean, Savage again. Savage again. Savage just leaving his guy alone, just leaving him there. Just my goodness, what's going on?
and Walker just not even noticing that there's a tight end he should be covering, leading from his zone, and nobody picking him up. He's just all alone.
I do think Quay Walker had a decent game though. Just all in all, that was a bad play, but I thought he was okay overall.
Mm-hmm.
Especially having to wear the green dot. Didn't seem like there was too much problems there. That's at least a positive. Wyatt still can't get on the field.
No,
I don't know what's going on there.
And it's the thing where we keep hearing about, well, he only had 15 snaps in the last 3 games combined, but his rating is good. It's like, well, can we just see some more and see if that holds up under a larger sample size?
Is it like he can only play on third downs because he can only rush the passer, or I don't even know. Like, he's a 24-year-old. He's a 24-year-old rookie though, and you drafted him to contribute now.
I think his run defense has also been rating better than the people in front of him anyway.
Yeah, I mean, do we want to move on to just a quick special teams, and then we'll go to
which there's not much. I mean, they punted only once. They had, they did get a penalty on an extra point that gave the Lions the decision to go for it on.
Yeah,
they get the 2-point conversion and essentially kind of put us behind the game a little bit. Where then we tried to match them, and then we fell behind 2 points.
That penalty was
were chasing points the whole. It was very weak.
No, I don't think it was very weak. It's just so unlucky. It was. I mean, the guy.
If the kick wasn't so terrible,
if the snap wasn't so terrible, the kick wouldn't have been so terrible, and we would have blocked it.
And it would have been a penalty.
Because the whole production on the Lions side was bad on that extra point, he shanks it so far left that it doesn't get blocked.
Yeah, it was like barely. It was shanked far enough to just barely miss Jair's fingertips.
Yeah, I mean,
and yeah, so
just how the game went. Just how the game went.
I feel like there's the special teams. Like there was nothing really to say good or bad. It was barely noticeable.
Amari had 1 return for 10 yards, looked okay. Keyshawn Nixon had a pretty good kick return, I thought, and
for 33 yards, he had a pretty good one. But there was
and then they made
the return coverage seemed fine.
They made their 1 field goal, and Coco snaps didn't look terrible this week like they did last week. So,
but there just wasn't many opportunities.
Yeah, let's go to our closing thoughts.
Let's go to closing thoughts.
Player of the game, I have Zach Tom.
So you had Zach Tom, which I had mentioned at one point. And then, so I'm going to change mine, actually, after we talked about, that I did think Lazard actually, had to produce. He had a big play, 47-yard play. So he had some big plays, so he did have some drops.
Statistically, it was an okay game, but I thought it overall was bad.
But maybe it'd be a more fair than a DeGuara.
Yeah, why not?
That I don't
career high catches, right?
Career high in catches. I think I'm going to go DeGuara as my player of the game. Career high in catches. It looked pretty good out there.
It was 5 for 40 something. Does that sound right?
It
was 5 for 41.
41.
Yeah. 5 on 5 targets.
Long of 25. Caught all his targets.
Yeah, I mean, they ran a little screen for him, and he's got no juice. He's got no juice at all.
You mean that one out, the screen out to the right side where he gained a half a yard after he caught it?
He's got no juice at all.
You know, the thing is, he can get speed, but it takes him a while to get there. He has to already be in motion. You have to hit him on the move.
That's why he's a good move blocker. That's why he's good, coming down the lane.
You need to hit him on the move, but when when he has to turn and go,
he can't turn.
Stand still.
This guy can't turn.
It takes him too long to get going.
Yep, that's tough. I mean, is he still the best 3rd-round pick they've had in the last 3 years?
5
4
years?
5 years? 6 years? Who knows? But anyway, I think the next part I want to talk about is what happens next, because I'm pretty much ready to stick a fork in this team. I thought this was the must-win bounce-back game that would turn their season around. I am a sucker. I am a fool. What's next, Dad? Do you want to? Since you're not as down as I am, do you want to go first, and then I'll do. I
think we could stick the fork in the team, but we're just checking it so far.
We're just checking to see if it's cooked all the way.
We're checking to see if it's cooked all the way.
Cooked yet?
It's like no. I think I can leave this in this team in the oven a little longer still, because I'm not going to completely give up on this team. I think until they. I'm going to wait until they get 8 losses. At least. I feel like there's still a chance that they can get to 11-6.
So you're saying there's a chance.
Yes, right. So I'm going to hold on to that chance. So okay. I'm not really going to blow up the season. while they still have I think the chance of winning the division would require a collapse at this point. It hurt that the Vikings pulled out the win against the Commanders.
It always hurts when the Vikings pull out a win.
In terms of the Packers having any chance at winning the division, but they can still make the playoffs. And if they make the playoffs, not whatever. Maybe they'll miraculously put something together and go on a run because
we're talking about playoffs.
They only have to fix their own mistakes.
Playoffs. I mean, they've only had to fix their own mistakes for the last month.
But then I'm like, okay, let's wait till they get to 8 losses, and maybe if they lose the next 2 games, then maybe it's like, okay, let's just let Love start the whole rest of the year and see if he's any good.
To counter to that, I think they're boned. Did you know that I saw this on Twitter, I can't remember who tweeted it, I'm sorry. The Milwaukee Brewers have won more recently than the Green Bay Packers? And the Brewers did not make the playoffs? Isn't that something? They haven't won in like a month. It's 5 straight. I'm pretty much ready to stick a fork in them. So for me, what's next is first, you got to decide what's happening at the quarterback position. And you got to figure out what you're doing with Rodgers. The scary part is the money has not even kicked in yet. According to Ken Ingalls,
his salary hit is not cap. Yeah. It's not that big this year.
He's not going to hit much on the cap this year. It was kind of an all-in year. According to Ken Ingalls on Twitter, he actually gets an $18 million raise next year, up to almost $60 million guaranteed. And if he retires, you're actually kind of more screwed because it's an even bigger cap hit because of the way his contract is structured. We'll talk more about this going forward as the season progresses about what the plan is, but it's not good.
If he actually retires, I think there will almost certainly be some kind of restructure that will add some void years to spread out the cap hit.
Maybe, but
instead of having it all accelerate onto next year. Let's say he retires this offseason. Yeah. I don't really think that will end up with all of that money accelerating onto the cap in a single year. Unless they decide that we're going to cut 15 players and just give up on this year.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. But you got to decide what you're going to do with him. I don't think he's tradable. Honestly, maybe a team will talk themselves into it, like the Titans next year, maybe talk themselves into trading for him. But I don't think you get a big package for him. And I think part of that,
a big haul anymore.
And I think part of that is how poorly the Russell Wilson scenario has gone. I think if I think Denver did well this year.
That's true.
I think
probably changed everybody else's opinion about doing this.
I think if Denver did well this year, you'd have a team be like, "Oh, look, like that's a formula where a team can win doing this." But the fact that has failed so spectacularly, I think, is really going to short the market on older quarterbacks, and the fact that Matt Ryan deal didn't work, and the fact that Carson Wentz deal didn't work. I mean, we got all these vets going to
Carson Wentz isn't that old. I mean, he's just bad.
That's fair. But anyway,
it's not like he's washed.
Trading for vets has failed miraculously in 3 different scenarios this offseason, which I think is going to put a damper on that trade market that would have existed for Rodgers.
And then Rodgers' own play has put a damper on his own market.
Yeah, so I don't even know what you would get for him, plus the contract. So I think he's probably going to be on the team next year with a massive cap hit, or he's going to retire. The other issue at the quarterback position is they're going to have to decide on Jordan Love's 5th-year option sometime between January 9th and May 2nd of 2023. So coming up very soon. Don't know what you do there. I don't think you've seen enough from him to give him the 5th-year option. So this
is why I say, like, once you decide that the season is officially cooked all the way through, then you just let Love play the rest of the year out.
But how do you do that gracefully? Do you just, like, Rodgers goes and gets thumb surgery and you just say, hey, we want him to be healthy for next year, like, and just let Love, like, how do you do that and save face? I guess
I don't know.
That's not, thankfully, it's not a problem for us. We're just here to give suggestions. And then I think the next thing you have to do after you figure out what to do at the quarterback position, which I barely even have any suggestions at this point, but I'm just noting that that's a problem that's going to have to be solved. I would not give Love the 5th-year extension. We've seen that it's just a lot of money, especially at the quarterback position, and he hasn't really done anything. We'll see if maybe he does something by the end of the year that gets us to change our minds, but is what it is. And then the next thing, they need to figure out what changes need to be made to this coaching staff, because I think the biggest failure this year has been the coaching. Joe Barry their defensive coordinator. I think he has to go. Honestly, he can go tomorrow for all I care. The only reason you were really keeping him was for continuity's sake. But I just think there's most of the problems on defense, super talented defense, and most of the problems are discipline related and scheme related, and that's just straight on the coaching. Last year, we thought that maybe we were wrong about the hire. Initially, I think most people were very low on the hire because he's never had a good defense in any of his stints over Detroit or Washington or anywhere else. They hired him anyways. We thought we were wrong because they played pretty well last year. And it was a bad...
They were still like in the 20s by a lot of metrics.
Yeah, and
last year.
Yeah, and it just looked really good in the playoffs, and they got pressure and they tackled well, and they did the little things well. They did the little things well last year.
That's true. Their tackling percentage was really good last year. And they looked fantastic in that one playoff game against the 49ers offense, and I think that was a little bit of fool's gold.
Yeah, and it was a bad hire at the time, and he is who we thought he was. Like, they are who we thought they were. I mean, he's just not a good coordinator.
In my note on the coach is like, Barry must be gone at the end of this year, regardless of how the rest of the year goes.
Unless they win the
turn
Super
it around.
Bowl. Yeah. I mean,
unless they win a Super Bowl and it's entirely on the back of the defense, and they are all of a sudden the 85 Bears and are beating giving up like less than 6 points per game for the rest of the year.
They'd have to be the 85 Bears to make the Super Bowl at this point because they ain't scoring more than 9 points in a game against the Detroit Lions. But anyway, I think we talked about this. It's like holding on to coordinators too long. I mean, they probably should have last year fired Mo Drayton halfway through the year when the special teams was one of the worst ever, and they didn't, and it cost them the playoff game. And they probably should have fired Mike Pettin halfway through the year in 2021. They didn't, and it cost them the playoff game. You could say moving on too soon, but just rip the Band-Aid off, I think. I don't know.
The other thing is, like, you say, well, we don't want to disrupt things. It's like, well, you already know this is ruining the season.
It's not going well. Beyond that, some other coaches, these are the coaches that I think should be, their seats should at least be warm. Some of them should be on the hot seat. Jerry Montgomery, their D-line coach and running game coordinator. I think you got to take a look there because they haven't really had a good run defense in a long time.
I had it in Montgomery was like, it doesn't matter how many players they sign or add, the run defense just stays bad.
Yeah. Wyatt hasn't been able to get on the field. The D-line's been a weakness for a while. I think they need to take a look there. I know the players really like him, so that's definitely a point for him. Like, the players like him, so that's good for that at least. But I think it's just something to keep in mind that I think his seat should be warm because the D-line's been kind of bad this year. Luke Butkus, the O-line coach, I mean, does he get a pass for the injuries this year, or should he have had the O-line more prepared? I think you can really chalk up the start to the season on the offensive line being so bad. They couldn't pick up a simple stunt. They just looked unprepared out there. They didn't even have the best five out there for the first 3 games. Having Royce Newman out there instead of Nyman in hindsight looks even worse. And then Jerry Gray, defensive backs coach, and passing game coordinator for the defense. I think he should stay. But I would say the defensive backs room has been the least inspiring. And obviously, I want to preface all this with, like, these are real people. We do not wish for anyone to lose their jobs, but at the same time, changes need to be made, I think, in a lot of these spots because they're just not performing up, like, the position groups are not performing up to the standards, and I think the defensive backs have been probably the most disappointing unit overall. Lots of blown coverages. He should probably stay, but I think the seat should be warm. And then Ryan Downer, the safety coach, it's his first year, but I think the seat should also be warm. I think Amos has kind of regressed, and Savage has really regressed this year.
The one thing I would say about Savage is Barry's defense just a bad fit for him, for his skill set? Because he was starting to play better at the end of the year, especially in 2020 under Pettin, and then switched coordinators, and all of a sudden he got much worse. Yeah, and is this just a bad scheme fit for him? Is he just becoming a worse football player, or is what they want him to do in this system a poor fit for what he can do?
They're going to have to find out next year because they took his 5th-year option, and I don't see how you move that. They're just going to have to pay him, and it's almost fully guaranteed, and it's not good. And then I think the last part is obviously whatever they do with those coaching situations, it's way above my pay grade, but those are just my thoughts on whose seats I think should be warm. Obviously, like we said, we don't want anyone to lose their jobs, but it is also about, it's a results-based business. And then the last one is, does Gutekunst stay? I think yes, but there are a lot of people calling for his job right now. I think it's hard to throw out, and a lot of people calling for Matt LaFleur's job as well. But I think it's hard for one season to undo 3 really good competitive years of football with really competitive rosters that just didn't quite get there. And I know they didn't quite get there, but they put together some really good teams, Gutekunst and LaFleur.
Yeah, that's
and
really good teams.
I think one bad year is not enough to offset all of that.
No, and I think people are, that we are in the time of year just post trade deadline where the Packers fans are angriest at Gutekunst's performance. It's this time of year and free agent signing season where the Packers seem to have the most trouble adding people.
Speaking of the trade deadline, so apparently they offered their first for DJ Moore. After this game, are you A, happy, B, unhappy that the Panthers said no? Because I'm pretty happy the Panthers said no. Because right now, if you didn't know, they would have the 8th pick overall in the NFL draft.
I was about to say, do you think DJ Moore is worth a top 8 pick?
There are only 5 teams in the NFL with worse records than the Packers. They have the same record as the Bears. I think maybe if they played the Bears right now, would they win? I think yes,
we'll find out.
I don't know. We're going to find out. If we lose to the Bears, man.
Oh my.
Oh my. But I mean, I think those are my last things for what's next. Start figuring out which players you want to keep on next year. See if you can find a way to sneak Jones under the cap, but you probably can't.
He'd need a major restructure with his next year cap hit being $20 million. But yeah, for me, I think we're still a couple weeks away from some of these questions. Though you do have to start planning for what you're going to do. And I'm sure they've already started thinking about, in terms of the players, for what the offseason is going to bring, in terms of who they can keep, who they need to cut and re-sign or take a pay cut to keep, kinds of things. And then they'll start evaluating what's really going to happen in terms of the future. I think we can...
Yeah. I mean, we'll
hope for a couple more weeks.
Do you have any last closing thoughts before we close up shop here?
This game was very disappointing.
Yep. And
that's maybe all I want to say about this. I don't know if I want to say anymore about what a letdown this game was, but
I think the word for the
story where they go through stretches where they look like they're gonna do something and they're making plays, and then they make a big mistake.
Yeah, that's true.
That's been the story of the season.
The word for the adjective for the season is disappointing. Disappointing. Just constant. Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, thank you guys so much for joining us. We really appreciate you coming and listening in. Like we said earlier, follow us on Twitter at FatherSonPacker for the latest breaking Packers news. Follow us or subscribe to us on YouTube, Father Son Packers Podcast. We will help our numbers. We would appreciate it. We will be doing a pregame on Thursday for the McCarthy Bowl, Packers versus Cowboys. We just got this, so hopefully we can take this one and salvage some pride and, at least that. But we'll be on Thursday for that pregame, Sunday for the postgame. We'll be here bringing you 2 episodes a week every single week, win or lose. We're here for till the end of the line. But anyway, until next time, go Pack, go.
Go Pack, go.